Okay, so now what we need to do is, I've already done this before, but it wasn't recording. So I'm going to take you through it while it's already been done, even though it wasn't recording, which is frustrating. So I'll start with this one because, okay, it wasn't recording, which is frustrating, but I'll take you through the first one. So with activity-based costing, right, you have a situation where it's similar to absorption-based costing, but it's not exactly the same. It's a more sophisticated way of absorption-based costing. So what you do is you have certain costs and you say that those costs are related to a specific circumstance. So you say one cost, like for example, if you run a trainer, you say you run a factory that makes shoes and you need rubber. The way you would do with with absorption-based costing, you'd say all those costs that don't relate to production, so putting the shoes together, you would say that it relates to the amount of labor hours that are produced. Whereas activity-based costing, what you do is you say that you try and split the overheads out, so the ordering of the shoes, the setup costs of the different machineries to produce different colors of shoes, and the material handling, so the different types of shoes, whether it's, a leather shoe or a cotton shoe or something like that. You split all those costs out and you divide it by a certain, what they call cost driver. So what is actually driving these costs? Is it the amount of material you have? So for example, with regards to the material handling cost, it's how much materials ordered. Yeah. So let's take setup costs, for example. So, and what drives those specific costs is what they call cost drivers. And it says here, for each activity, calculate the budgeted overhead cost per cost driver. So here you would say equipment setup costs. So how much it costs to set up equipment. You've got 25,000 here. So what's driving that is how many times you need to set up your equipment. Yeah. Model A has 400, 650, so 1,050, yeah, is the equipment setup costs. So all you do when you're doing this essay and when you're doing this assignment, you would do 25,000 in there. So when you're writing it out, 25,000, and then you would do 1050 like that. And then you would do equals and you would divide one by the other. And then what you would do is you would show your workings. So you should put it like this. Okay. Okay, so you would do that, yeah, and then you would do that all the way down. So then, for example, the 65,000, you hit special parts ordering, you go 65,000 total here. Cost driver is 65,000 because they've told you what the cost driver is down here, which is number of the special parts ordered, because special parts ordering cost is £65,000. The driving cost of the £65,000 is the number of equipment, the number of special parts ordered, as it said, £65,000. So you do 65,000 divided by 65,000. Customer invoicing costs, 35,000. So what drives that cost is the number of customer invoices that are sent per year. Yeah, okay. So that's 365, as you can see. So what you do is you type in 35,000 divided by 365, which is that. Always do it to 2 decimal places. Materials handling costs. So it's the amount of materials that are ordered, which is number of material requisitions, which makes sense. So you would do 840, so you would take 75,000 divided by 840. 75,000 divided by 840. And then your other label related heads, this could be whatever they say it is. In this case, it's number of direct labor hours. So you would then use the 54,000 here. So you type in the 150,500 divided by the 54,000 and you get 279. And then that answers that, because for each activity, calculate the budgeted overhead cost per driver. I did do it in more detail previously, but it didn't record, which is unfortunate. So Now we're going to go calculate the overhead cost per unit. So the reason why we did this first one is so that we can now easily calculate the overhead cost per unit for model A. So what you do is you times all that back in for model A and model B, and then you divide it by the number of units you create, basically. Okay, so what we do is we will now so we've got these units, so model A, and I'll show you how this works. So you can see that 25,000 here. You'll see that on this total here, when you times it by it, it will be great because it will equal 25,000 each time. But model A and model B. So this model A. So model A, sales price per unit, we want to work out the contribution. So when you split this out, when you do something like this, yeah, you've got your selling price and your variable costs, yeah? Variable costs, so these are your variable costs. So you've got £12.50 per hour, and then it's labour hours per unit, direct material cost per unit. So what we are going to do is we're going to go selling price which is 70 and 95, yeah, labour costs. Yeah, so what you'll do when you write out, you will put, when you're doing it in the assignment, because you've got to be careful here, it's £12.50 times 2. So you'll do equals £12.50 times 2, but you will show that in the workings, yeah? So you'll do something like model A equals £12.50 times 2, yeah? And you'll do then model B equals £12.50 times 3, okay? And then you'll do equals £12.50 times 3, okay? And then you got your direct material cost, which is fine, which is 15 material. And 35. Is that still recording good? 15 and 35. And then number of equipment setups. So you've got 400 here. So you do equipment setups. And every single time you do this, you need to divide by the number of units you create. So you will do equals open 400, because you're creating 400 units, yeah? 400 times by the unit, yeah? This is why you did this in the first place. Here, yeah, times that. And so I'll just show you how this works rather than dividing it first. Then you'll do this, open brackets, 650 times that, yeah? And what you should see when you see the total, the reason I put it there, each time I'll show you this each time, and you know you've done it right then, 25,000. So always when you've done it, times that by that, because obviously it should equal 25,000. If it doesn't, then you've done something wrong. So for example, if you times it by too many, like 420 for example, it will be more. Anytime you times it by however much it's created, because you've only ever created 1,050, if you times it by more or less, it will not equal 25,000, so it must equal 25,000. But because, remember what the question says, you want to do it, calculate the overhead cost per unit for model A and model B. So what you want to do, I'm doing B and C together right now, by the way. So what you will do, calculate the total overhead cost. This is what we're doing right now, is calculating the total overhead cost. What we did before, we were doing the first part of this before. So we're calculating the total overhead cost. You can do these two together, right? So this is just a process. You would always do this first anyway, and then these two. You would do this, you would do them all together. You would probably do what I did. So, and then what you do is you take this, because you want to do it per unit. How many units did we create by our budget? 11,500. So you'll divide model A by 11,500, yeah? So let's take that, divide it by 11,500. Yep, 1 apparently, or 0.8, that's fine. And then 13,500, because that's fine. Okay. And then that's no longer relevant for now, and I'll show you how it works each time. You'll see now when we do special parts ordered, you'll see that it will equal 65,000. And we got to do what we got to do. Anyway, so what you need to do now, sorry. So the special parts ordered, right? 15,000 and 50,000. So what you do, if you see here, you'll do 15,000, because that's model A, yeah, times that by 1, and then you will do equals 50,000 times by 1 as well, which is 65. So what has happened there is you can see the same, and it will be the same. I will only show that at this point. So we'll open the brackets there, remember to show all your workings, and we will do 11,500 divided by to get it into units produced. And voila. And then we will put brackets there, and we will say that that is 13,500 as well. Okay, we will delete that and we won't use it anymore. So, and actually I want to show you something that you should do. So that should be your prime cost, because that's your contribution. So you're doing the prime cost. Oh, it's like prime something, yeah. You do that minus that. And your special parts. So we've got customer invoicing costs. So we do invoicing. Still going. So then we do 65. So we do open brackets because it will make it easier for me. 65 times that. Yep. And then equals 300 times that. And guess what it will equal? It will equal 35,000 if I've done it right, just to show you. Yep, exactly. So then again, we just divide that, because we want it on a per unit basis, we just divide that by 11,500, because that's how much we are producing. And then we will divide that by 13,500. Okay. And then we've got material, and then material at 75,000. So that doesn't matter that much, because material 120, so we do equals 120, and you know the score by now. So we do equals 120 times by that, divided by 11,500, and we do times here 720 divided by 13,500. And then we've got the total labour hours situation, and we're just going to go labour, and this is relatively straightforward, equals this. No, we don't do it like that. We do 24,000 times that. Remember, it's per unit, so we do 11,500 because that's what we want to see. We want to see how much we're making per unit, because ultimately these costs are going to be what we incur anyway. So we just want to make sure what the most profitable thing is times that. Divided by 13,500. Sorted. And then that is literally it. You've done all those costs, and now you're ready to work out, because you've done all your overheads. So your total cost, so if you wanted to put, so your total profit per unit, so your total profit will be that minus that, because these are all your costs per unit, minus that, minus that, minus that, and you would just bring that over. Don't do that. Actually, don't do that. And we will just put those in. Okay. And if you wanted to work out your total cost, it would just be your variable costs plus all of these per unit. Yeah, that's what your cost per unit is. Okay, voila, that is done, and that is your answer.